Says here the Johnson boy is in the South Pacific, taking pictures. He's lucky. Not like me. He's doing what he likes to do, instead of slaving in a factory. Boy, through the Pacific with gun and camera. Now me, I'll take the gun. He can keep his camera. What the devil does the Navy want with a camera anyway? They ought to fill it with bullets and aim it at the jack.
Combat photographers, fighting men whose only weapons in the front lines of battle were their cameras. The story of these men is as dramatic as the events they cover. From every battlefront in World War II, an endless flow of photographs and motion picture film reported history in the making to the American people.
The Photographer's Mate rating was established in Pensacola, which is the home of naval aviation and is also the home of Navy photography. A young enlisted cook by the name of Walter Richardson became the first designated photographer, and of course his job was to do aerial photography during World War I, but that's really where it all began, was in Pensacola, Florida.
From the darkroom days as a photographer to souping prints and doing all of that film processing, drying, you had chemical storage. We had people in reconnaissance squadrons doing TARPS missions. We had people in P3 squadrons doing handheld and systems cameras. We had people doing medical photography, public relations. We had people working in intelligence.
It really still comes down to trying to control something that comes from this massive thermonuclear device that sits above our world and provides us with the most gorgeous thing that we could ever experience.
Or the most important contribution that our rate or legacy rates has brought the Navy and our country has been the acknowledgement of activities and events that the common American may never know.
That to me gave me a direction, it gave me a purpose, and it certainly gave me an awful lot of motivation.
That is priceless.
Photographic interpretation. What sort of a war is that?
The origin of the Lithographer's Mate started in 1948. That was a merger of the lithographers and the printers. Those people were responsible for every possible printed product, which included the plan of the day, battle plans, all the way down to the menus that were used on the mess decks and the memo pads used by the captain. At that time, technology had evolved to the place where it wasn't direct printing anymore. The new process was offset. What it had done was revolutionize the way that all printing was done. It was able to be done faster, with easier changes.
So I printed things like USWAS books, manuals, chartlets for the chain of command. So pretty much anything that needed printing, they would come to me and I would print it out for them and make sure they had what they needed.
So it was an incredible amount of work.
What I want people to remember about the LI contribution of the Navy is that everything that the LIs did was something that helped the ship succeed. And it was purchase, whether it was simple as giving a person a Liberty card or if it was just as big as printing out the flight plan. Everything they did had a reason, and everything they did was important to the mission of the ships.
The most important things to remember about printing in the Navy, it's the last part of the assembly line for the product, for the communication product. And every person that's ever contributed to any part of that process is hugely important to the history of the Navy.
This is the American Forces Radio and Television Service.
I'm Navy journalist Tom Francis.
And I'm Navy journalist Dwayne Dewsbury. This program is...
Good morning, Saudi Arabia. Chief journalist Rich Janku kicking off
the touch of home to American stationed there.
Now for Navy journalist Ralph Higgins at Port-au-Prince.
And I'm the production director for Navy Broadcasting Service Detachment Rota.
What I'm doing right now is queuing up the newscast.
Serving the U.S. European Command, this is AFN.
Well, the roles and responsibilities of being a journalist back in the day when I was in was to write stories. We did media engagements on board carriers, but I also worked at a broadcast detachment.
You know, back then you could either go broadcast or you can go print. Essentially, our mission, or my mission, was the print side of what journalism is.
You know, broadcasters, they were kind of considered to be the prima donnas of the community. They had big egos, and they'd get their broadcast voice going, and they loved it.
For Navy Broadcasting Service, we hope to continue this tradition throughout the remainder of the decade and into the 1990s.
We were high-tech at the time. I point to this 3/4-inch pneumatic tape deck that you sling over like a gigantic backpack type with an umbilical cord running to, you know, a camera that, you know, weighs like a house.
As far as what was the most fun, being a DJ, that was the bomb.
JOs were always responsible to tell a story, communicate whatever was going on.
A newspaper and a TV show and 10 hours of live radio every day while we were underway with a 6-person shop. And while it was hard, it was probably one of the most exciting times of my life.
So I had some incredible, amazing experiences as a Navy journalist, and I was getting paid for it. It was awesome.
Well, Janine, that sure was a test of strength and endurance, wasn't it?
It sure was.
The first official Navy artist on active duty. And since there have been many others that through their creative dexterity have truthfully recorded those vivid points in time that make history.
The Navy Illustrated Draftsman rating was established in 1948. To become a draftsman in the Navy was the biggest deal to me. The majority of the draftsmen were independent duty. So if you found a draftsman, they were by themselves.
And then he said, you know, why don't you become a DM? And I thought, yes. I've always wanted to be a DM, but to be a DM at the time, I have to be in the Navy first, and then I have to put in a portfolio to strike into that rate.
The passion starts kicking in. I'm an artist and I like to draw. I'd like to be a DM, sir. And that's really my passion. We're mainly in charge of graphic support. Adobe Photoshop, InDesign, CorelDRAW, and all that. lettering, freehand drawing, photography, DM, illustrator, draftsman.
A war, under any conditions, is an awesome and tragic event. But when it's there, it's fertile ground for the artist. For when bravery and deeds are commonplace, it bears the full spectrum of human emotion and brings the quality of the human spirit to the surface.
To be able to draw, actually pen and paper, that's a craft that's not necessarily teachable. And because you can't teach that, you set yourself in an elite group of people.
Why we chose this trade? Because it's our passion. It's what we want to do.
Because of this effort, millions of people in America's towns and cities have had the advantage of viewing the full spectrum of Navy history, a program that now has its own tradition, its own history.